On presidential campaign announcements continues with Pat Buchanan, challenging then Vice President George H.W. Bush for the Republican nomination. Mr. Buchanan received 40% of the primary vote in New Hampshire and continued his campaign until the Republican convention. He announced his candidacy from New Hampshire on December 10, 1991. This is about 15 minutes.
My friends, we come to New Hampshire at a crossroads in our national history. The long Cold War between communism and freedom, in which many of us invested lives and careers, is ending. Some of us thought we would never see the day that communism was defeated and the empire of Lenin and Stalin was dismantled. But it has happened, and it is happening. By the grace of God, America won the Cold War. But my friends, victory has not brought with it an end to history. Beyond these shores, a new world is being born for which our government is unprepared and for which we are unprepared. The dynamic force that is shaping that new world is nationalism. From Ukraine to Croatia, old nations are breaking up and new nations are being born. And as we Americans have always stood for freedom and self-determination, we should not fear the future. And we should be the first, not the last, to welcome these new nations into the family of nations. But they all look...
Act up! Fight AIDS! Fight back! Act up! Fight back! Fight AIDS! Act up!
All right.
Act up! Fight AIDS! Act up!
All right. Be gentle. Be gentle with him. Be gentle with him. You know, very briefly.
I have AIDS. I don't hold it.
All right, listen. You know, gentlemen, I was reminded when I flew up here to Manchester, New Hampshire, a sense of nostalgia. Hold it over there. A sense of nostalgia for 1968. And my friend here made it sort of complete. The demonstrators are still here. Okay. Everyone silent now? As I said, they all look to America as the ideal of what they might become. Let's go to the Far East now. However, their nationalism has taken on a different and a harder aspect. The rising economic power of Japan has filed a claim to displace the United States as the great power of the 21st century. In Europe, many of the ancient states are signing up to exchange their national sovereignty for a limited partnership in an economic co-op called the EC. In Holland today, a conservative prime minister is being pressed to lead the mother of parliaments into yielding up to Brussels and bureaucrats in Brussels, what generations of British soldiers have fought to preserve. Friends, we Americans must not let that happen here. We must not trade in our sovereignty for a cushioned seat at the head table of anybody's new world order.
All right.
The first challenge we face then is economic, presented by the rise of a European superstate and a dynamic Asia led by Japan. The 20th century was the American century, but they intend to make the 21st the century of Europe and the century of Asia. And so, as we Americans congratulate ourselves on the victory for freedom that we first and foremost won, and won together for all mankind, we must begin to prepare for the new struggles that are already underway. All the institutions of the Cold War, from vast, permanent U.S. armies on foreign soil to old alliances against communist enemies that no longer exist, to billions in foreign aid, must be re-examined. With a $4 trillion debt, with a U.S. budget chronically out of balance, should the United States be required to carry indefinitely the full burden of defending rich and prosperous allies who take America's generosity for granted as they invade our markets? Now, whenever there is a natural disaster anywhere in this world, from Kurdistan to Bangladesh, we Americans will be there, and we will be there first with aid and relief.
All right.
That is our tradition. It is a tradition that will never change. But it is time to end these routinized annual transfers of national wealth to global bureaucrats who ship it off to regimes who pay us back with compound ingratitude. It is time to phase out foreign aid and to start looking out for the forgotten Americans right here in the United States. So today we call for a new patriotism, where Americans begin to put the needs of Americans first. For a new nationalism, where in every negotiation, be it arms control or trade, the American side seeks advantage and victory for the United States. And the people of this country need to recapture our capital city of Washington from lobbyists and registered agents of foreign powers who are hired to look out for everybody and everything except the national interest of the United States. It is time also to take a long, hard look at the welfare state. Over a quarter century, we have poured hundreds of billions of dollars into great society programs. Now, whatever the motives of those who built this mammoth state enterprise, our financial loss has been exceeded only by the social catastrophe it created. High school test scores drop every year as the levels of violent crime reach new heights. Narcotics have ravaged a generation. Our popular culture of books, movies, and films is as polluted as Lake Erie once was. The welfare state has bred a generation of children and youth with no fathers, no faith, and no dreams other than the lure of the streets. To our economic crisis, however, we Americans know the answer. It is to end the steadily rising drain of wealth and resources in Washington, to ease up on, not add to, Mr. President, the tax burden on American business, to unleash, not tie down, the genius and energy of American enterprise. And as for the predatory traders of Europe and Asia, who have targeted this or that American industry for dumping and destruction, if I am elected, they will find themselves on a collision course with the President of the United States. When we say we will put America first, we mean also that our Judeo-Christian values are going to be preserved. And our Western heritage is going to be handed down to future generations and not dumped onto some landfill called multiculturalism. But at the root of America's social crisis, be it AIDS, ethnic hatred, crime, or the social decomposition of our cities, lies a spiritual crisis. Solzhenitsyn was right. Solzhenitsyn was right. Men have forgotten God, not in the redistribution of wealth, but in the words of the Old and New Testaments will be found not only salvation, but the cure for a society suffering from a chronic moral sickness. But as we search for the answers we all used to know, we need to take back our streets from the criminals. We need to persuade pastors and preachers to return to their pulpits, to re-instruct us in the commandments and truths of our traditional faiths. And leave the politics to the politicians. And within the power of a limited government, we must do what we can, and we must do all we can to reconstruct the old conscience-forming and character-forming institutions of society: family and church, home and school. We need God's help, and we will need your help. Why am I running? Because we Republicans can no longer say it is all the liberals' fault. It was not some liberal Democrat who declared, "Read my lips, no new taxes," and then broke his word to cut a seedy backroom deal with the big spenders on Capitol Hill. It was not Teddy Kennedy who railed against a quota bill and then embraced its twin. It was not Congress alone who set us off on the greatest social spending spree in 60 years, running up the largest deficits in modern history. No, that was done by the men in whom we placed our confidence and our trust, and who then turned their backs on us and walked away from us. And what is the White House answer to the recession that was caused by its own breach of faith? It is to deny there is a recession. Well, let them come to New Hampshire. My friends, we are the sons and daughters of the men and the women who brought America through the Great Depression and defeated fascism on both sides of the world. We ourselves are the men and the women who won the long Cold War with communism. We can win the future, and we can hand down to our children and grandchildren a country as grand and great and good as the one that was given to us. But first, we must take America back. So we are taking this campaign not just to Republicans and not just to conservatives. Every American is invited to join, and every American is needed. But this campaign is for the working people and the middle class of both parties and of no party. For the establishment that has dominated the Congress for 4 decades is as ossified and out of touch with the American people as the ruling class in the White House. So, this race will not be about personalities, and it will not get into personalities. George Bush served bravely in America's Great War. George Bush is a man of graciousness, honor, and integrity who has given half a lifetime in his country's service. But the differences between us are now too deep. He is yesterday, and we are tomorrow.
All right.
He is a globalist, and we are nationalists. He believes in some Pax Universalis. We believe in the old republic. He would put America's wealth and power at the service of some vague new world order. We will put America first. And so, to take my party back and to take our country back, I am today declaring my candidacy for the Republican nomination for President of the United States.